Russia continues its relentless aerial bombardment on Ukraine. Moscow launched a massive missile and drone strike overnight that extended from Kharkiv and Sumy regions to Lviv and Bukovina. Now, in a post on X, Zelensky claimed that Russia launched 26 cruise missiles and 597 attack drones, over half of which were Shahed drones. Zelensky further claimed that over 20 missiles and a vast majority of drones were destroyed by the Ukrainian Air Force. At least 2 people have been reportedly killed and around 20 have been injured in the attack. Now, calling for swift decision to deter Moscow, Zelensky has demanded tougher sanctions on Russia, more air defense and investment in interceptor drones. Now, amidst the aerial assault, the Russian army has shared a video of combat training by assault troops on the 25th Combined Arms Army. The video shows Russian troops practicing various attack patterns on enemy positions. Well, this comes as Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov is visiting North Korea, where he met Supreme Leader Kim Jong-un. Speaking during a meeting between the two sides, Lavrov praised the North Korean leadership for contributing to the cause of liberating Russian territories.
We are sincerely grateful to the leadership of the Democratic People's Republic of Korea, all military personnel, soldiers, and officers who demonstrated excellent combat training and made a very important contribution to the just cause of liberating Russian territories.
Lavrov's visit is the latest among a series of meetings between top Moscow and North Korean officials. In June last year, Russia and North Korea had signed a comprehensive strategic partnership treaty, signaling deepening military partnership between Pyongyang and Moscow. Now, joining us on the broadcast from Wicklow, Ireland, is Scott Lucas. He's a professor of international politics, Clinton Institute, University College Dublin. Thank you so much for joining us on the broadcast.
Thank you.
The U.S. has resumed military aid to Ukraine and is sending its special envoy, Keith Kellogg, according to President Zelensky. Now, it's just after pausing certain weapons delivery to Ukraine. Now, according to you, what does this shift signal about Washington's evolving stance on the war?
Well, I think overall, it signals that Donald Trump's idea that he could work directly with Vladimir Putin to, effectively support the Russian invasion while proclaiming that he was ending the war. That's not working. Quite clearly, with these strikes that you've talked about, with the effort to advance on the ground, although Russia's taking very little new territory, they're not willing to compromise. Vladimir Putin's goal is, as it has been for the past 40 months, to conquer Ukraine, to make it part of Greater Russia. Now, that means that Trump can't rely on Putin to get him that Nobel Peace Prize. But what does it mean in terms of U.S. support for Ukraine? I think that depends on 2 issues. The first is Donald Trump is very unpredictable. He's very chaotic, as you know. So he said, now I am authorizing U.S. military aid to Ukraine. I will sell Patriot air defense systems to NATO members to give to Ukraine, but could he change his mind? And I think even more important, the Trump administration is other officials, and they are divided over how far to support Ukraine. You have some like Keith Kellogg, the envoy to Ukraine, who will be there on Monday. I think he very firmly wants to make sure Ukraine can continue to resist the Russian invasion. You have others like the Vice President J.D. Vance, who I think have signaled in the past that they would walk away from European security and Ukrainian security. Which group gets the ascendancy? A lot of that will depend on infighting within Washington, but it also depends on the ongoing skill of Ukraine and its European partners to encourage Washington to join them in what is a necessary resistance against Moscow.
Right, Professor Lucas, and President Zelensky has also called for tougher international sanctions against Russia to deter further aggression. Now, how likely is it that we'll see any strong action anytime soon?
I think in terms of the U.S., I think it'll be limited, at least in terms of the White House, because Donald Trump still has this idea that you can trade with Russia, which is a fantasy, but he holds on to it. However, the U.S. Congress is moving towards tougher sanctions on Russia. We saw the 2 sponsors of the sanctions legislation meet with Zelensky this week. That's Senator Graham and Senator Blumenthal, Can they get this bill through Congress in the next few weeks? And if Trump threatens to override it, can they, or veto it, can they override that veto? That's one issue. But I think even before that is, can the European pass its 18th package of sanctions? These would be much tougher sanctions on Russian energy, on Russian banks. There are a couple of countries that are holding out against it, Hungary and Slovakia. Will they stop the resistance of this sanctions legislation, which can be significant if the EU does adopt it in restricting Russia's revenues for its war?
Right. Thank you so much, Professor Lucas, for joining us on the broadcast and sharing your perspective with us.
Thank you to you and your great viewers.